welcome back. I am here with Ben. In the last 2 weeks, we talked about how to launch books successfully on Amazon, and we are now down to part three. This is going to be exciting. And again, I'm here with Ben. Ben, how are you today?
Doing well, Arvin. Thanks for the
Nice.
introduction. So yeah, as you said, this is our third and final video in kind of this little series about how to have a successful book launch on Amazon KDP. That's Kindle Direct Publishing. So if you haven't watched the previous two, this is gonna be the shortest of the three. If you haven't watched the previous two videos, I'd recommend going back to watch those. We'll put links down below. So this video is really about day one of your book actually going live on Amazon, and then what happens kind of in that period and the first month it's actually live. So, Arvin, before we kind
Yeah.
of jump in, any questions?
Yeah, I just also want to clarify this to our audience that this the first part and this last part is not really how to write a book, because if you guys have that understanding of writing the books, formatting, editing, whatsoever, this is launching the book. So basically everything is ready. You're just gonna launch it to Amazon. So yeah, and so yeah, going through this with Ben in the last two session, I have better understanding of how to launch the books in Amazon. I learned how to write the book with the help of Ben, and now I think I'm ready. Probably next week I will launch my own book without Ben's knowledge.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's exciting. I'm just finding out about that. So, to Arvin's point, to get clarification, essentially what this video is breaking down and what the previous two videos broke down as well is how to launch a book successfully. So, that is assuming you have already completed the research and writing of a book, you've got a cover, everything's done and ready to go. This is the process that we've used to actually and go through and personally launch now 8 or 9 books on Amazon, plus some additional bundled books. So first off, this is a just kind of high level of what is working for us. This process is what has allowed us to reach essentially for almost all of those books, getting in the top 100 new book releases within the first month of a new book release. So it really sets the stage for you to actually have not only a successful first month, but it really catapults you into having a good position for subsequent months on Amazon. Um, I'll give you a quick overview because where this process started in the first video, we cover what you're doing in terms of setting up and scheduling your go live date. So it should be at least 2 weeks prior. So there's a bunch of things we do in that kind of 2 week lead up time in terms of we upload our book, we determine it's going to go live on this date, 2 weeks or more in advance. We start getting reviews, do some keyword research, all that jazz. The 1 week before step is really where we're kind of double checking everything, getting some email promotions that are going to really go live in the top part we're talking about today. These email promotions are driving a ton of external traffic. We're also doing research in terms of setting up PPC, setting up Author Central, a bunch of other things. So again, make sure you go back and watch those previous videos. What this is all covering is really two pieces. The launch, which you can see there's really only two action items there, and what happens in the 1 month, including the day you launch that first month. What does that actually look like? So essentially what we left off with last week in the previous video is our book is about to go live. The first week it is live. We have our first email promotion with a company we use called Written Word Media. So essentially we've already scheduled that. So day one, our books are actually live on KDP. First thing we're going to do, go flip the switch on all of the ad campaigns that we've set up. We already put these set up in pause mode or inactive status in the 2 week prior period. So we've already done all the keyword research. They've been sitting there ready for us to launch. So now that we have some reviews, it's launch day. We're going to go flip the switch and turn those on. And really the second piece is hopefully at this point, we've also gotten the audiobook completed. So we're also going, and if not, we're going to try to finalize that within the first couple days, because as soon as we start driving ads and traffic to our Amazon book listing, we want to have all the different formats for people to be able to purchase. Hopefully we already have some reviews. We want to have PPC. We really want to be checking all the boxes there, and A+ content. So the launch is literally flipping the switch on that and making sure we've got that audiobook complete. Now, what happens in the first month following launch? essentially there's a couple different key things that are happening. Week 1, our first email promotion runs. So besides PPC, we have a huge influx of traffic externally from that first email promotion. Go back and we can cover that in the previous video. Week 2 is when our ebook is now going to be running for free. So Amazon uses that free ebook promotion. So that is in week 2. So simultaneous with our free ebook, we're also having a free book promotion that's going to drive a ton of traffic from an external email list. So week 2 is really where you start getting this massive spike in terms of getting, you normally, at least with our books, we've been getting 1,000 orders on the free ebook promotion, normally in a 1 and 2 day period. I've had at least 2 books where we get 1,800 units moved. Now they are free, so we're not making money on those, but we are drastically spiking our best sellers.
A little bit of money, right?
A little bit of money on some, yeah. Most importantly, we're getting a ton of orders, which means we're going to start getting some reviews, and our ranking is going way down in a good way. Our BSR is improving, and this is really where in week 2 normally we're seeing that we're hitting within the top 100 free ebooks, and I've seen also within the top 100 on the paid ebooks, or in some cases paperbacks, or in the number 1 new release ranking. We're able to get pretty high up in that. So those are kind of the first 2 weeks. We have PPC running. At this point, we're starting to use that data, obviously, to optimize PPC. That's an entire separate video from this, but we're going to be starting to make optimizations kind of after those first week and a half, 2 weeks have gone by. And then we're also going to start scheduling one more round of email promotions. So down here, this would be step 3. Schedule the second bargain book promotion. This is with a company called Written Word Media that we talk about in the previous video. We will put a link down below, but you normally pay about 30 to 60 bucks and they'll promote your book in one of their email lists. So we're scheduling the next round of that. And then we're checking over this first month, essentially how we're performing from the keyword ranking standpoint. So we use Helium 10 to monitor keyword ranking. We want to see that our PPC and the sales volume is helping to push up our ranking organically on our top 10 keywords. So that's the other piece you should be monitoring for here and adjusting strategy according to that. There's one last piece, but I'm going to pause for a second. Arvin, any questions?
No, actually, I have a question, but that's not related to the process. So let's just go with and finish this launch process, and yeah, we can talk about my questions later.
Very last thing on here is essentially as we get into week 3 and 4 of being live is when we will start to reevaluate and push the book sell price up. If you remember from watching the first video, essentially the way that we launch books on Amazon KDP is to start with a low price and that we then increase over time. So the way we normally do this is on the ebooks, it's normally going to be $2.99 or less. Normally I actually will launch a 99-cent sell price. Our margins are really low there. We're doing that because we're trying to compete. We don't have as many reviews as maybe the other people in the category. For paperback hardcover, what we're normally going to do is we're going to use the average sell price for page 1 sellers, and then we're going to be priced slightly below that so that we have a competitive launch price. Where I'm going with all this is at about week 3 is when we should now have some ranking, some reviews, and it's starting to make sense for us to start moving that sell price up. Normally we'll move at this point that ebook up to anywhere from $2.99 to $4.99, and the paperback, well, it depends on what your market price is, but most of my paperback backs start maybe at $11.95, and then we move them up to maybe like $13, $14.95, and eventually inch them up to $16.95 or $17.95. So that's kind of what's happening in that first month post-launch. Really after that, in the kind of months late after that, it's kind of repeating these processes, getting some more email promotions, continuing to split test, maybe listing optimizations and managing PPC. So it can be fairly hands-off. You can still be pretty hands-on, but that's why this business model is great and scales well. All right, I'm done with my little spiel, Arvin. So that's pretty much the process. Over to you. What questions do you have?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks. So I'm just really curious because you said you've launched, well, I'm part of some of them, but of all of the books that you've launched, is this always the process you follow from the from the very first book that you've launched, or you're just doing like trial and error every time?
This is almost always been the process that I've used. Tweaked it a little bit though. But more or less it's been the same. I'd say that yeah, actually this has been pretty much the same. I had some pieces of this that I learned from other people through YouTube and whatnot, and then I added in like my own kind of twists on things. But generally speaking,
Mhm.
these are the elements that have led to successful book launch on Amazon. We've refined this now, so we have a better sense of this, but yeah.
Yeah, good follow-up question on that one. And you said successful, so I'm just using that word. What's your success rate on launching books on Amazon? Is it always going really well, or is it going
Depends what
bad
you
sometimes?
depends what you determine what that it means to you, because you know there's the type of bookseller who just wants to launch, like this is their only business model, launching books and just trying to be profitable on books themselves, which is really where I started and still where I would say I am now. um
Mhm.
so I would say 60% of the books are at least getting a solid ROI, maybe 70%. But you know the books that we have, and there are some that flop. So 100%, it's not every book is going to be successful. Some of them, I will say that it takes sometimes a while for them to start being winners. There have been a couple books that I thought were not going to work at all, that then after 6 months, all of a sudden they're like one of the best selling books. And that's why I think like it's all a game of trial and error. Yeah, you can do as much research as you want up front, but you got to just keep launching books, and then you kind of figure it out along the way. And some hit and some don't.
Yeah, actually, yeah, you mentioned the launching more books, but if you will like go back to the time where you first launched your first book, will you, and if you have the budget as well, will you actually launch several books at the same time, or just focus on one?
Good question. When my first books launched on Amazon, I launched two books. One of them is still the best sell, either the number one or number two bestseller in the catalog. So, and I'm actually surprised. I didn't think it would be. The second book is still a solid, consistent seller, not as good. But my recommendation would be to always launch at least two books at a time, and within like the same kind of I guess like category, because the second biggest thing that I think has been helpful for generating like revenues from this or royalties is then you create a third SKU or third listing for a combination book. So if I launch book A and book B, like maybe I launched a book about like, I don't know, chicken coop, being the best chicken coop person, and I launch a book about
Yeah.
like taking care of, I don't know, pigs or something, then I can, because those kind of are both in this like managing your own farm or something, I can now launch a third book using them as and put it as a bundle book, which I'm not, the only thing I have to do to create that bundle is create a new cover, and then obviously set up the listing, maybe a little tweak on the formatting. But that's a great way to get squeeze more royalties out. So
Yeah.
that'd be my recommendation. That's what I started with, as I started with two books with a combo book. So I really effectively
Mm-hmm.
had three books at launch.
Yeah, well, I agree with that one. But yeah, I do have last question, which is I think the very, very important question since we're talking about, selling on Amazon, launching books. Do you have, or can you give us a ballpark on about the cost for the pre-launch? You don't have to answer this one if you can. The ballpark figure of how much would be the pre-launch cost, setting up the books, everything else, and then during launch and post-launch for one book, for example.
Yeah. Well, you can do it in very different ways. If you want to write a book yourself, right? Then it's significantly cheaper. If you want to, you don't have to do all of the marketing steps that I kind of talked about. So you could just, if you want to do the cheapest possible way, it's like you use free tools to do keyword research and whatnot and find a book you want to write about. Maybe you don't even research it that much. You already know a topic. You just write it, format it yourself, make your own designs in Canva or something. Like you could do the book for free in theory. Uh, and then the only thing you would pay for is maybe advertising, so, but to answer your question, like from my standpoint, because I'm not a writer. I know how to research on Amazon. I know how to do that part. So like I'd find a book topic, I would outline it myself. I'd personally use Helium 10 or Jungle Scout, which I already have subscriptions for. So, but there are free tools. I don't know if Unicorn Smasher is still around, but like that's a free one I used to use all the time.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, I think it's called Unicorn Smasher. Anyway, the point is then I would pay a ghostwriter. I used a company and they would have ghostwriters. It would cost me about $1,500 to get the book, the outline, the book, the covers, the formatting. They would do all of that as a bundle, and it used to be about 1,500 per book, right? So, and then I would get it uploaded, and then I would pay maybe about $100 to $150 for email promotions, and then spend about 100 to 200 or 300 a month in PPC advertising on Amazon. So that was the model I chose to follow. You can also go even more extreme than that, and spend more money.
Yeah.
I personally don't. And now we're reducing costs quite a bit by leveraging, AI, not to write full books, but to help with maybe getting half of that book written before we bring in
Improving it.
a real human. So now we can produce the books for significantly less. That means, and we can normally launch them a lot faster, except when I'm moving slow and Arvin's yelling at me. But generally speaking, we can launch books
I
quicker.
don't yell. Well, yeah. Because yeah,
Oh my
that's
God.
I think that's important for our viewers to know as well. Like, yeah, especially those who's interested to launch their books on Amazon. For me, how
And
much would it cost me, right?
if you have, it's like the classic thing. If you're always going to pay in time or money. So if you're, I'm in my 30s now. When I was in my 20s, I had more time on my hands, less money on my hands, and I just
Uh,
worked really aggressively. And I would do a lot of things myself that I now would not do. Right, like I used to do a lot more merch by Amazon print on demand stuff, and I would do a lot of design work myself. I'm glad I did it then, but to be honest, now that's not really what I like doing. I'd rather pay someone to do that. So, but there are still things, I'm now in my 30s. I still do a lot of stuff on my own, but I also pay more to outsource more things. And in my 40s, I'm sure it'll be even more that I outsource things because I have less time. So you always
yeah.
kind of choose where you're going to pay. So if you're like in
Sounds
your
like
20s or your 30s and you have a lot of time, like maybe it makes more sense for you to write a book start to finish yourself. That's totally doable. It's just a lot of work.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's like a lot of work. Well, good thing I'm still on my 20s, so I can still do a lot of work. So
Yeah,
yeah.
you're young. You've got time on your side. I don't.
Well, your uncle, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Understood. So
So
anyways, I'm just joking. So yeah,
yeah,
anything else you want to add there in there, Ben, just to close this video?
I think that's it for this one. I would just say, I think there's a lot more that I would love to talk about in the KDP world. So if anyone has questions from this or anything else about Kindle Direct Publishing, let us know down below in the comments and we'll make subsequent videos. A lot of these can be broken down into their own video. This is just a high level overview. So I think that's pretty much it.
All right, thanks, Ben. See you next
All
week.
right. Thanks. See you, Arvin.